When the plane touched down at O'Hare International Airport, I glanced at my watch. It was 3:20 in the morning. I was supposed to be at the closing gala of Milan Fashion Week, but instead I had slipped back home to Chicago. "Ma'am, are we heading straight to the estate?" asked Hector, my chauffeur, as he discreetly took my suitcase. I gave a quick nod, pulling my Bottega Veneta silk scarf up to cover the lower half of my face. I had cut my trip short by 4 days. There was no special reason, just the casual voice of my husband, Matteo, on the phone yesterday. "Have fun, no need to rush back." His words had set off an alarm in my head. 6 years of marriage, I knew my husband too well. The more considerate and generous he seemed, the more certain I was that something was wrong. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest stories. Now back to the story. The sky was just beginning to lighten as the black Lexus LS entered the exclusive gated community of Lake Forest. I motioned for Hector to stop at the entrance and pulled the suitcase myself, dragging it toward the house. I wanted to give Matteo a little surprise. The door opened silently with my fingerprint. I slipped off my Manolo Blahnik heels and held them in my hand, walking barefoot on the cold marble floor. A chill traced a path from my soles up to my neck. The master bedroom was empty, the bed perfectly made, as if no one had slept in it. Frowning, I pulled out my phone and checked the home security camera system. Matteo had left at 10 the previous night and hadn't returned. Just as I was about to call him, I heard a murmur of voices from the second floor. I froze. Holding my breath, I crept up the stairs, moving toward the sound. It was coming from the room at the end of the hall, the room we had set aside for a future baby. After 6 years, it was still empty. Now the door was ajar, a sliver of light escaping from the crack. "My brother said this room gets the most sunlight, and he insisted that I give it to you, Cassandra." It was the voice of my sister-in-law, Isabella. Her tone was cloyingly sweet, almost nauseating. "Really? A place as special as this? I'm not sure I deserve it," a fragile female voice replied, her face. Last month. A pounding began in my temples and my ears hummed, but I forced myself to stay calm. With trembling hands, I took out my phone, put it on silent, and started recording. "Isabella, what if your sister-in-law suddenly comes back?" the girl Cassandra asked, biting her lip. Her eyes, however, gleamed with greed. "Ha! That barren hen," Isabella scoffed. "What right does she have to be in this family? She's just a walking ATM. Don't worry, she's in Milan right now spending money, and even if she came back, do you think she doesn't know who runs this household?" I bit my lower lip until I tasted blood. For 6 years, I had loved Isabella like a sister. When she graduated, I pulled every string I had to get her a job with a salary well over $100,000 at the Midwest Alliance. For her wedding, I gifted her a condo and a car. And now, Isabella continued in a triumphant voice, "If it weren't for the money from the Sterling Enterprises, do you think my brother would have ever looked at her? Always acting like some stuck-up cultured heiress. It's insufferable. But you're different, Cassandra. Young, beautiful, sweet. My brother says that as soon as you get pregnant, he's going to divorce her." Everything went black. If I hadn't leaned against the wall, I would have collapsed. Matteo Castillo, what a piece of work you were. And me, Amelia Sterling, how blind I had been. Just as I was about to burst into the room, my phone vibrated. I quickly retreated to a corner of the hallway. The screen showed Dad. I took a deep breath and answered. "Amelia, where are you?" My father's voice was unusually serious. "At home, Dad," I whispered. "Good," he paused. "We've detected some abnormal capital flow at Castillo Holdings lately. Matteo is diverting large sums of money from the company to overseas accounts. Keep an eye on him." I gave a bitter smile as I looked at the half-open door. "Dad, I don't think we'll need to anymore." I hung up, and after one last look at the room, I left the house as quietly as I had entered. Once in the car, an uncontrollable tremor took over my body. Hector looked at me in the rearview mirror, his face full of concern. "Ma'am, you look pale." "To the office, please." Call. "Amelia, what the hell is going on? My card isn't working." I was so embarrassed. Her voice was shrill and unpleasant. "Must be a system update," I said with a calmness I didn't feel. "I'll look into it." "Well, hurry up. I'm meeting my friends." I hung up on her before she could finish. Immediately after, Matteo called. Seeing my husband's name on the screen made my stomach churn. I rejected the call directly. "Hector," I said, looking up at my chauffeur, "let's go to Midwest Alliance headquarters. I need to see Mr. Davenport." Isabella Castillo's high-paying job was living on borrowed time. Sitting on the leather couch in the office of the Midwest Alliance CEO, I drummed my fingers on the armrest. Mr. Davenport, an old subordinate of my father's, looked at me with a pained expression. "Miss Sterling, Miss Castillo is your sister-in-law. To do this, isn't it a bit," he said, adjusting his thin, wire-frame glasses and wiping sweat from his forehead. "Mr. Davenport," I said, taking a sip of tea, my voice soft but with an undeniable force. "Do you remember who took care of your son's drug problem in Florida a few years ago?" Mr. Davenport's face turned ashen. "Understood," he said, and picked up the intercom. "Miss Finch, please contact Human Resources. Prepare the termination papers for Isabella Castillo. Make sure her final check is ready today." Putting down my cup, a slight smile touched my lips. "Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, I hear the Midwest Alliance is having some trouble with the land for the new Lincoln Park North project. My father plays golf with the Minister of Development." Mr. Davenport's eyes lit up. He nodded repeatedly. "Miss Sterling, don't worry. I will handle this matter flawlessly." As I left the building, the sunlight was blinding. I had 21 missed calls, 5 from Matteo, 3 from my mother-in-law, and the rest from Isabella. I called my best friend, Genevieve Croft. "You got time? Let's grab a drink." 30 minutes later, at a bar in the Peninsula, Chicago, Genevieve arrived stomping in her 4-inch Stuart Weitzman heels, dressed in a sharp navy blue suit. Every man in the place turned to look at her. "Amelia Sterling? So, you're back from Milan early?" she asked, raising an eye. I replied with a cold smile. "And not only that, Isabella used my contacts to get Cassandra an internship at a production company, a subsidiary of Sterling Enterprises." "This is too much. Is she insane?" Genevieve slammed her hand on the table, furious. "What are you going to do?" I carefully applied hand cream. "First, the in-laws' black cards are canceled. Second," I looked at my watch, "by now, Isabella should have received her termination letter." Genevieve whistled. "Well done. But your in-laws aren't going to just take this sitting down." "Oh, really?" I asked, lifting my cup. "By the way, Genevieve, look into Castillo Holdings accounts. Dad says Matteo has been siphoning a lot of money overseas." Genevieve's expression turned serious. "I already had it on my radar. The cash flow from several of their projects is very suspicious. I think Matteo is embezzling company funds." A tremor ran through my fingers and several drops of tea spilled on the table. I knew Matteo was ungrateful, but stealing from his own family's company? As we talked, my phone rang again. It was my mother-in-law. I took a deep breath and answered. "Amelia, what's happening? Your father and I were in Geneva buying some furniture, and suddenly the card stopped working." Her tone was full of evident displeasure. "Oh, mother-in-law, they must be updating the bank system. You know how those things happen," I said in an innocent voice. "Don't worry, I'll check on it tomorrow." "But this sofa is a limited global edition," she whined. I interrupted her. "Mother-in-law, I'm in a meeting. I'll call you back. Pay with another card for now." Without giving her time to reply, I hung up firmly. Genevieve gave me a thumbs up. "What a great actress, Amelia." I gave a bitter smile. In 6 years of marriage, if there was one thing I had learned, it was how to act. My phone vibrated again. Matteo. Genevieve and I exchanged a look. I put it on speaker. "Amelia, what the hell are you doing?" Matteo's shout echoed through the phone. "Isabella just got fired for no reason. It was you, wasn't it?" I kept the speaker on so Genevieve could hear everything. "Matteo, honey, what are you talking about? Isabella got fired, but how?" "He's not coming to talk. He's coming to see if I'm guilty." "And now what?" Genevieve asked. I looked out the window. The panorama of Chicago stretched out below us, a sea of cars and brilliant lights. "Now we let things heat up a bit. Isabella losing her job is just the appetizer. We'll see what my dear in-laws' next move is." 20 minutes later, as expected, Matteo didn't show up. Instead, Isabella posted something on a social media platform. Time puts everyone in their place. Some people shouldn't be so arrogant, or karma will take care of them. The photo was a black and white selfie, her eyes red as if she had been crying. I liked it with a frozen smile. Genevieve rolled her eyes. That girl isn't very smart, provoking you in this situation. She's been spoiled since she was little, I said, putting my phone down. In that family, they've always favored the son, but they've always indulged her, too. And what are you going to do about Cassandra? Genevieve asked. My gaze hardened. For now, I'll let her rot. If Mateo set her up with a walk-in closet, let's see how long he can keep her. Suddenly, Genevieve lowered her voice. Amelia, I have to tell you something. If Mateo is really embezzling funds, this is no longer a personal problem. If the scandal breaks, it could tarnish Sterling Enterprises. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I mean, Genevieve said, serious now, you have to prepare for the worst. Gather evidence and protect yourself. A guy like Mateo, if he's cornered, is capable of anything. I nodded. Something occurred to me. By the way, do a thorough investigation into Cassandra Shaw. I have a feeling this isn't so simple. Actually, Genevieve said, looking at her watch, I have to get back to the firm. A client is waiting for me. Are you going home tonight? Of course, I said, giving a smile. After all, it's my house. After saying goodbye to Genevieve, I went straight to my father's company. On the top floor of the Sterling Enterprises headquarters, my father was receiving reports from his executives. When he saw me come in, he interrupted the meeting. Dad, we need to investigate the cash flow of Castillo Holdings, I said bluntly. My father frowned. What's wrong? I told him what had happened that morning and my suspicions about Mateo. Asked? To a shell company in the Cayman Islands, my father said with disdain. Mateo thought he was being discreet, but he forgot that I have trustworthy people at the bank. I held my breath. 16 million. This was no longer a moral issue. It was a criminal offense. Amelia, my father said, looking at me with solemnity, what do you plan to do? I closed the file. My voice sounded strangely calm. First, gather all the evidence, and then, I looked up and met his eyes, make them pay for it. When I left the Sterling Enterprises building, it was already dark. Sitting in the car, seeing the dozens of missed calls from Mateo and the messages filled with insults from Isabella, I felt a deep exhaustion. Hector looked at me concerned in the rearview mirror. Ma'am, should we go straight home? I closed my eyes. Yes. Oh, and tomorrow, please call a locksmith. I want to change all the locks on the house. All of them, ma'am? Hector asked, surprised. Yes, all of them, I said, opening my eyes, including those of Mateo's and Isabella's rooms. When the car entered the gated community, I saw the lights of the house on. Mateo was back. I took a deep breath, composed my expression, and walked in. Amelia! Mateo jumped up from the couch, his face pale. You're finally back. What's wrong? I asked, feigning surprise. Did something happen? Are you still playing dumb? He lunged at me. What happened to Isabella was your doing, and the cards, too. I dodged him and set my purse on the console naturally. Mateo, I really don't know what you're talking about. I've been with Genevieve and then at Dad's office talking about projects the whole time. Mateo grabbed my wrist roughly. Stop the nonsense. You think I don't know what you're up to? I yanked my hand away. Mateo, watch your words, I said coldly. You're in my house. Your house? He scoffed. For 6 years, everything has been yours. The house is yours. The car is yours. Even my sister's job depends on your family. A wave of rage surged through me, but I suppressed it. And with the money from my house, you support your mistress. Mateo's face changed. You collapsed on the floor. Finally, the tears I had held back all day flowed freely. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Genevieve. I've got it. Cassandra Shaw is not innocent. She's connected to several important businessmen. It seems she has someone behind her. I'll tell you more tomorrow. I wiped my tears and replied, okay. The night before my father-in-law's 65th birthday, I stood in front of the walk-in closet, running my fingers over the row of couture gowns. I stopped at a crimson Oscar de la Renta with a deep V-neck, a red as intense as blood, as fire. My phone vibrated, a message from Genevieve. Confirmed. Cassandra Shaw is also attending the party. Isabella arranged it. She says Mateo is bringing her as his goddaughter. I smiled coldly and replied, perfect. I put down the phone and took out the red dress, trying it on. 6 years ago, at my wedding, my mother-in-law told me that red was too flashy, unbecoming of a good family's daughter-in-law. Tomorrow, I planned to dazzle. The party was held in the grand ballroom of the Drake Hotel. I arrived deliberately 20 minutes late. When the staff opened the imposing golden doors, I walked in elegantly, wearing my diamond-encrusted Manolo Blahnik heels. All eyes turned to me. "Amelia, darling, you came," my mother-in-law said, approaching with a forced smile. Her gaze, however, was fixed on my fiery red dress, and a flash of distaste crossed her face. "Happy birthday, mother-in-law, father-in-law. I hope you have many more," I said with a smile as I handed them a gift box. Inside was a Vacheron Constantin watch worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, bought, of course, with her black card. My father-in-law accepted the gift with a tense smile. "Well, your presence is gift enough." I scanned the ballroom. Soon I located Mateo and Isabella in a corner. Next to them, of course, was Cassandra Shaw. She was wearing a white lace dress, pretending to be an innocent college student, but on her wrist was a limited edition Van Cleef & Arpels bracelet. I remembered seeing the receipt in Mateo's pocket last month. "And who is this young lady?" I asked, approaching them as if I knew nothing. Mateo's body visibly tensed. Isabella quickly stepped in front, admiring glances of the other guests, and let out a small giggle. "Why, don't you like it? Miss Shaw just told me that it complements my skin tone." Mateo was about to retort, but Isabella stopped him. "Brother, everyone's looking." With elegance, I took a glass of champagne and walked toward the corporate heavyweights. They were all old friends of my father's and important partners of my husband's family. "Mr. Wallace, Mr. Reyes, long time no see." I raised my glass in greeting. "Amelia, you get more beautiful every day," Mr. Wallace said, smiling. "How is your father?" "Very well, thank you. Busy as always." I took a sip of champagne. "By the way, I hear Castillo Holdings is having some problems with the new Lincoln Park North project." The businessmen exchanged a look. Mr. Reyes lowered his voice. "Amelia, it's better not to comment on these things. The financial situation of Castillo Holdings isn't good lately, and several banks have them in their sights." I feigned surprise. "Really? Mateo hasn't told me a thing." "You, Amelia," Mr. Wallace shook his head. "You're too innocent." At that moment, Isabella approached with Cassandra. "Mr. Wallace, Mr. Reyes, good evening." Isabella greeted them cordially and then pushed Cassandra forward. "Cassandra was very eager to meet you." Cassandra immediately raised her glass. "I've heard so much about you. Allow me to toast to the masters." I watched her performance, laughing on the inside. The girl knew how to move in these circles. No wonder Mateo fell for her. After several rounds of drinks, the atmosphere relaxed. I saw Isabella whisper something in Cassandra's ear. She nodded, grabbed a glass of red wine, and came toward me. "Amelia," Cassandra's voice was cloyingly sweet. "A toast to you. Thanks for the invitation." I saw the red wine in her hand and knew. Just as she was about to clink her glass against mine, her wrist tilted abruptly, and the entire contents spilled onto my red dress. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," Cassandra cried, feigning clumsiness as she tried to wipe me off. But a flash of triumph gleamed in her eyes. The ballroom went silent. All eyes were on us. Mateo and Isabella rushed over with poorly disguised satisfaction on their faces. "Amelia, don't worry. Cassandra didn't do it on purpose." I blinked innocently. "Mother-in-law, you saw it yourself. It was an accident on the waiter's part." "You!" Mateo's face was livid. Undeterred, I pulled my phone from my purse and played an audio file. Isabella's voice echoed clearly throughout the ballroom. "Huh, that barren hen. What right does she have to be in this family? She's just a walking ATM. My brother says that as soon as you get pregnant, he's going to divorce her." There was a general murmur. Isabella turned as white as a ghost. Mateo exploded. "Amelia, how dare you!" "Dare to do what?" I cut him off coldly. "To air your family's dirty laundry?" I turned to my father-in-law. "Father-in-law, happy birthday. Do you like my gift?" My father-in-law's face was a mess. The glass he was holding fell to the floor, shattering with a metallic clatter. "Amelia!" Matteo yelled, lunging at me with his hand raised. I stood still. Just before his hand reached my face, 2 bodyguards in black appeared out of nowhere and grabbed his wrist. "Mr. Castillo, please behave yourself," one of them said in an icy voice. I adjusted my dress and gave a slight bow to the guests. "I apologize for ruining the evening. I must take my leave." As I walked away, I heard my mother-in-law's hysterical screams and my father-in-law's curses. Matteo, held back by the bodyguards, tried to follow me, but I was already getting into the car. "Home, ma'am?" Hector asked. "No. Take me to see Genevieve." I took off my stained jacket and pulled an envelope from under the seat. The show has just begun. As the car drove away from the Drake, I saw Cassandra at the entrance trying to hail a cab, looking pathetic. Her white dress was now an ugly shade of pink. I rolled down the window, gave her a slight smile, and mouthed 2 words. "Goodbye, beautiful." Her expression was as if she had seen a ghost. At Genevieve's apartment, I handed her the envelope. Castillo Holdings financial reports from the last 3 years. "Take a look." Genevieve flipped through it, her frown deepening. "Amelia, this isn't just embezzlement. Matteo has been falsifying the accounts, inflating project costs. We're talking about a sum of at least $40 million. I held my breath. $40 million. He was insane. And Genevieve and I exchanged a look. "Come to Genevieve's law firm right now. I'll text you the address. Don't tell anyone." After hanging up, Genevieve frowned. "You trust her?" I shook my head. "No, but since she offered, let's see what she has to say." 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Genevieve checked the peephole to confirm it was Cassandra before opening the door. Far from her glamorous appearance at the party, Cassandra's face was pale and her eyes were swollen. She had been crying. "Amelia," she said, and as soon as she entered, she knelt down. I didn't help her up. "Talk. What's going on?" Between sobs, Cassandra confessed, "I didn't approach Mr. Castillo on my own free will. I was ordered by Mr. Gallardo. He wanted me to get business secrets from Castillo Holdings and Sterling Enterprises." My heart skipped a beat. "Go on." "Mr. Gallardo promised me $2.5 million and to pay for my studies abroad if I succeeded," she said, wiping her tears. "But today, I realized that he won't keep his promise. After the party, he sent people to warn me to keep my mouth shut. Or else." "Or else what?" Genevieve pressed her. "Or else he would ruin my career and hurt my family." Cassandra burst into tears again. "Amelia, I know I did wrong. Please help me." I stared at her for a long time and then suddenly asked, "Does Matteo know you're Gallardo's person?" Cassandra shook her head. "No, Mr. Gallardo said that Matteo was just a pawn, that he would discard him after he used him." A pawn? A chill ran through me. What if Gallardo's real target wasn't the Castillo family, but my Sterling Enterprises? "Genevieve," I stood up, "find someone to protect Cassandra. I have to see my father immediately." Cassandra grabbed my dress. "Amelia, there's something else. Mr. Castillo and Mr. Gallardo plan to move some important documents next week. I think they have to do with the new Lincoln Park North project." The new Lincoln Park North project. Sterling Enterprises and Castillo Holdings' largest joint real estate project, valued at $2.5 billion. I leaned down and looked her in the eye. "Are you sure?" She nodded desperately. "Mr. Castillo said it one night when he was drunk. He said that this time he would deliver a big blow to Took a sip of coffee. The bitter taste spread across my tongue. From the moment Isabella brought Cassandra into my house, there was no turning back. Genevieve sighed and handed me a newspaper. The headline read, "Heiress from Storied Family. 6 years of infertility lead to husband's infidelity. Sterling Enterprises heiress treated for mental instability." "The in-laws," I said with a cold smile. Genevieve showed me several social media posts. The trending topics were #Amelia Sterling, #infertile, #crazy heiress, #spurned vengeance. Isabella had paid several influencers to spread the rumors all over the net. My fingers trembled slightly as I read the poisonous comments. My in-laws wanted to completely destroy my reputation. "Don't worry," Genevieve said, patting me on the shoulder. "After the press conference, these rumors will vanish." I shook my head. I'm not worried about that. What I'm wondering is why Matteo is in such a hurry. The logical thing would be for him to try and calm me down. He hasn't squeezed all the resources out of Sterling Enterprises yet. Genevieve frowned. You're suggesting that someone is pulling the strings? I put down the coffee cup. Adrian Gallardo is not one to get involved in other people's business without a good reason. At that moment, my phone rang. The name Matteo appeared on the screen. I answered and put it on speaker. Amelia? Matteo's voice was surprisingly soft. Can we talk? About what? My tone was neutral. I know you're preparing a press conference. He paused. Don't do it. We can handle our dirty laundry at home. Let's fix this in private. You want to? I raised an eyebrow. Wow, now you're worried about dirty laundry. You weren't thinking about that when you were in bed with your mistress, were you? Amelia. His voice became almost pleading. I was wrong, I admit it. Give me a chance. Let's talk in person. Genevieve and I exchanged a look. Okay, after the press conference, at 2, at the Langham restaurant. After hanging up, Genevieve looked at me, incredulous. Are you really going to meet him? Of course, I said with a cold smile. The fact that he's so desperate to stop the press hospitals in the country. Some people say I'm infertile. This is my gynecological report, which proves that everything is perfectly normal. Next, I played an audio recording. It was Matteo's sweet words to Cassandra. Sweetheart, as soon as I take control of the new Lincoln Park North project, I'm going to divorce that old hag. There was a murmur in the room. The journalists were taking photos non-stop. As for me being mentally unstable, I gave a bitter smile and showed more photos. They were images of Matteo and Cassandra on vacation in the Bahamas. The date coincided with the days I was taking care of my mother-in-law in the hospital after an operation. Finally, I pulled out my secret weapon. Castillo Holdings' irregular financial reports. Clear evidence of Matteo's embezzlement of funds. As Matteo Castillo's wife, I did not wish to make these things public. My voice trembled. But since his family has spread rumors to defame me, I have had no choice but to defend myself. The journalist's questions rained down. I answered some selectively and then gave a deep bow. I'm sorry, I'm very emotionally distressed. We'll end the session for today. As I left the room, Genevieve grabbed my arm. That was Oscar-worthy. Public opinion on the internet has already shifted completely. I wiped the tears from my eyes, which were actually drops from an eye moisturizer I had discreetly put in. Castillo Holdings stocks fell 5% at the open, and right after your press conference, they've plummeted to the trading limit, Genevieve said, excited. I nodded. This is just the first step. At 2 in the afternoon, I arrived punctually at the Langham restaurant. Matteo was already waiting for me. He looked quite haggard, with bloodshot eyes. Amelia, he stood up when he saw me. I motioned for him to sit down. I sat down opposite him and ordered a tea. The press conference, was all that really necessary? He asked, rubbing his hands together. I smiled coldly. Compared to the rumors your family spread on the internet, I've only limited myself to exposing the facts. I didn't do that, he defended himself hastily. It was Isabella. She's immature. I've already scolded her. Oh, of course, I said, stirring my tea calmly. And the article about the rich, infertile wife of 6 years wasn't your doing. Then there's nothing more to talk about. I stood up. Wait, he stopped me. Amelia, what do you really want? I leaned in and whispered in his ear. I want you to lose everything, for your reputation to hit rock bottom. With that, I turned around and left, leaving him petrified in his chair. As I walked out of the restaurant, Genevieve's car was already waiting for me. How did it go? She asked, as soon as she saw me. I buckled my seatbelt. Just as I expected. He tried to apologize falsely to find out my intentions. Genevieve handed me a document. Breaking news. Matteo was at Adrian Gallardo's office this morning. He was there for 2 hours. I opened the file. There were photos from a detective. Matteo was furtively entering the Olympus Capitol building and leaving 2 hours later looking grim. He's meeting with Gallardo. Find out what they talked about. I'm already on it, Genevieve said, starting the car. Oh, there's news about Cassandra. What is it? Last night, she went to your in-laws' estate and had a huge fight with Isabella. Genevieve frowned. The The strange thing is that they weren't arguing about Mateo, but because apparently some money hadn't been deposited into her account. My heart skipped a beat. Money? The $2.5 million Gallardo promised her? Probably, Genevieve nodded. And the weirdest part is that after the fight, Cassandra received a call and left in a hurry. Since then, no one has heard from her. I frowned. She's disappeared. It's not for sure yet, Genevieve said, turning the wheel. I've already sent people to look for her in her usual spots. At that moment, my phone rang. It was my father. Amelia, where are you? His voice was very serious. In Genevieve's car. Why? Come home immediately. My father paused. Adrian Gallardo just called. He wanted to talk about your situation with Mateo. A shiver ran through me. What did he say? He said, my father's voice was filled with anger, that he can mediate your conflict. The condition is that we give him 30% of our stake in the new Lincoln Park North project. Just as I thought, Gallardo was after the project. Dad, don't accept under any circumstances. I gripped the phone tightly. Mateo's embezzlement must be related. Capital flow diagrams. This money, after passing through 3 intermediaries, my father pointed to a line, ends up in an overseas account, and the holder of that account, he flipped to the last page, is Mateo himself. My eyes widened. He's been laundering money. Not only that, my father said gravely, I suspect he's conspiring with Gallardo to siphon funds from Sterling Enterprises. Suddenly, an idea crossed my mind. Dad, Cassandra Shaw could be the key. Cassandra Shaw? He frowned. You mean his mistress? I nodded. She told me that Gallardo sent her to get close to Mateo. If Mateo and Gallardo are partners, why bother sending her? My father looked thoughtful. It's possible that at first, Mateo didn't know Gallardo's plan and was simply a pawn being used. At that moment, Genevieve came in a hurry. Bad news. Castillo Holdings just issued a statement saying that Amelia's accusations are defamatory and that they will be taking legal action. Going down swinging, my father said with disdain. And that's not all. Genevieve handed her phone to my father. Mateo just gave an interview to MSNBC saying that Amelia has mental problems, that she's in treatment, and that everything she said at the press conference was a delusion. I grabbed the phone. On the screen, Mateo, impeccably dressed, had a pained expression. I love my wife very much, but since she suffered a miscarriage, she's fallen into a depression and has refused to seek treatment. A miscarriage? Rage made me tremble. I had never been pregnant. My father took the phone, read it, and turned livid. That damned animal! Genevieve's phone suddenly rang. She answered, listened for a few words, and her expression changed. What? Are you sure? Okay, keep watching. She hung up and turned to us. They found Cassandra. She's at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Someone beat her up. The extent of her injuries isn't known yet. My father and I looked at each other. Who did it? It's not clear, but before she lost consciousness, she kept repeating 2 words. Genevieve took a deep breath. The papers. The papers. I remembered what Cassandra had told me, that Mateo and Gallardo planned to move some important documents. Dad, I have to laughed, but too late. Oh, by the way, it seems your father's company's accounting books also have some problems. Mr. Gallardo is having coffee with his friends from the SEC right now. The call suddenly cut off. I stood there, feeling an icy coldness in my hands and feet. What's wrong? Genevieve asked, concerned. I mechanically repeated Isabella's words. My father, hearing them, slammed his fist on the table. Gallardo, that old fox. Dad, our company's accounts are clean, I said. They are, my father said with firmness. But if they want to find something, they'll always find a way. I took a deep breath. What do we do now? My father looked thoughtful. We'll split up. Genevieve, you accompany Amelia to the hospital to see Cassandra. I have to go visit some old friends. Dad, be careful, I said, worried. My father patted me on the shoulder. Don't worry, I've been in this world for 40 years. I've seen everything. As I left the mansion, I saw that Hector wasn't driving the usual Lexus, but a discreet Audi. It's for security, Genevieve explained. They could have put a tracker on us. On the way to the hospital, my phone was non-stop with notifications. Castillo Holdings' statement was already having an effect on social media, and public opinion was starting to divide. Some supported me, but others were beginning to doubt my mental state. "Don't look at it," Genevieve said, taking the phone from me. "They're all bots, paid to create an atmosphere." I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. This war was much more complicated and dangerous than I had imagined. Matteo, Gallardo, even Isabella. They all had their own plans, but one thing was clear. They had really angered me. "Genevieve," I opened my eyes. "Contact the press. I'll hold another press conference tomorrow." "Another one?" Genevieve was surprised. "The situation isn't in our favor right now." "Exactly," I smiled coldly. "Since they say I'm crazy, I'll show them what real craziness is." When the car stopped at the hospital entrance, I received a message from my father. Confirmed. The SEC deputy director and Gallardo were college friends. Be careful. I deleted the message and pulled up the collar of my coat. This war had just begun. Outside the private hospitalization area of Northwestern Memorial, two bodies—
You can talk, right?
I dragged a chair over and sat down. Suddenly, Cassandra's eyes filled with tears. It was Mr. Gallardo's people. They said I didn't do my job well, that I tried to betray him. I narrowed my eyes. "You went to find him?" She nodded and then shook her head. "I went for my money. He wasn't paying me the $2.5 million he promised." "And you blackmailed him?" Genevieve said, her tone sharp. Cassandra's face turned even paler. "I just told him that if he didn't pay me, I would tell you everything," she said, looking at me timidly. "Tell me what?" I leaned forward. "Mr. Gallardo's and Mr. Castillo's plan, the new Lincoln Park North project. The door suddenly opened. A doctor in a white coat and two nurses came in. "Time for rounds," the doctor said, expressionless. "Companions, please step out." I frowned. "We just arrived." "It's hospital policy." The doctor approached the bed, looked at the chart, and took a syringe from a cart. Cassandra began to resist violently. "No, I don't want it. Don't give me anything. Amelia, help me." Before I could react, Genevieve had already stepped in between them. "Just a moment. Why does the patient need an injection?" "A sedative," the doctor said coldly. "The patient is very agitated." "I'm her lawyer," Genevieve showed her Bar Association card. "You have no right to forcibly medicate her without a clear diagnosis." The doctor seemed flustered but insisted. "It's a medical prescription." "What doctor prescribed it?" Genevieve didn't give up. While they argued, Cassandra grabbed my wrist and quickly wrote 3 numbers on my palm. 528. Before I could understand, the doctor pushed Genevieve aside roughly and plunged the needle into Cassandra's arm. A few seconds later, her gaze clouded over and her hand fell from mine, powerless. "What department are you from?" I asked harshly. "May I see your IDs?" The doctor didn't answer, turned around, and rushed out with the nurses. "That's odd," Genevieve said, and went after them. She came back shortly, her face full of concern. "They're gone. There's no one in the whole hallway. Call the bodyguards immediately. Tell them to watch the elevators and stairs. Stop 1 doctor and 2 nurses." I hung up and looked at Cassandra, now asleep, clenching my fist. Comments section was chaos. Fake accounts were mass posting comments like, "The elite are so dark," and "Hang in there, Cassandra." Several influencers had amplified the message. The interactions were in the hundreds of thousands. "It's Isabella's doing," I said with a frozen smile. "She bribed someone at the hospital to sedate Cassandra and publish this from her account." At that moment, my phone rang again. It was my father-in-law. "Amelia," his voice was surprisingly kind. "I just heard about the internet thing. It was just a childish prank by Isabella. I think we should sit down and talk calmly." I almost laughed. "Father-in-law, now you want to talk to me?" "We're a family, aren't we?" He laughed half-heartedly. "Look, I'll arrange a lunch tomorrow. Bring your father and we'll talk about everything." "No need," I said coldly. "If you have something to say it now." There was a silence of several seconds. When he spoke again, his tone was lower. "Amelia, Castillo Holdings is going through a rough patch. Stocks have fallen a lot, and the banks are demanding we repay the loans." A cold smile appeared on my lips. "So, you wanted to ask," he said with difficulty, "if you could talk to your father to advance us about $16 million? We'll put up Castillo Holdings shares as collateral." $16 million. Wow, he wasn't playing around. "Father-in-law," I said, drawing out my words, "did you forget that Castillo Holdings announced this morning that it would sue me for defamation, and that Matteo publicly said I have mental problems?" "That was a misunderstanding," he rushed to say. "I've already scolded Matteo. I told him to retract the statement. Amelia, for the 6 years we've been family, it's too late, I interrupted him. By the way, why don't you investigate where those $16 million that Matteo sent to the Cayman Islands in the last 6 months went? With that, I hung up. Genevieve looked at me with wide eyes. You're going all in, huh? I shook my head. It's not me. It's the Castillo family that's destroying itself. I opened the bank app on my phone and showed her a statement. Look, the money Matteo embezzled ended up in a shell company controlled by Gallardo. So Gallardo is using Matteo to drain Castillo Holdings, Genevieve understood. And not only that, he paused. The situation isn't good. He handed me some papers. Gallardo has started leaking doubts about Sterling Enterprises' financial health to the press. Our stocks have already fallen 7% today. I opened the file. It was an article from a financial newspaper. The headline, Suspicions of Accounting Fraud at Sterling Enterprises, the Mystery of the New Lincoln Park North Project Funds. What audacity! I trembled with rage. We invested $1 billion of our own funds in that project. Every penny is accounted for. The problem, my father said gravely, is that Gallardo has bought off the deputy director of the SEC. They're sending an inspection team to the company tomorrow. Genevieve held her breath. This is a full-blown attack. I clenched my fists. Dad, we have to fight back. How? My father said with a bitter smile. Gallardo has many political and financial contacts. With Cassandra Shaw, I interrupted him. She's the key witness. Before she lost consciousness, she wrote 3 numbers on my hand. 528. My father frowned. What does it mean? I don't know. I shook my head. It could be a password or a room number. Wait a minute, Genevieve suddenly intervened. Matteo has a permanent suite reserved at the Langham. The number is 528. My father and I looked at each other. Investigate it. Genevieve left to make a call to find out more about Suite 528. I turned on the computer and went on social media. Cassandra's accusation was already the most commented topic. We can't let the narrative go this way. I gritted my teeth. Genevieve, contact the major media outlets. I'll hold a press conference tomorrow at 10. Are you sure? Genevieve asked, worried. Right now, public opinion isn't on our side. Exactly, I smiled coldly. Since they say I threatened Cassandra, I'll show them who is really threatening whom. I opened the gallery on my phone and pulled up the photos the detective had sent me. A clear image of Matteo and Cassandra kissing in a hotel hallway. The date was 3 months ago, when he had told me he was on a business trip. This will be enough. I moved on to the next image, showing more evidence. Security camera footage from the hotel, records of their stays, even in that room this afternoon. I instantly understood Cassandra's message. There's evidence in Suite 528. Genevieve, send someone to retrieve the contents of that safe. I'm already on it, Genevieve said, but we'll probably need a court order. There's no time. I looked at my watch. It was already 1 in the morning. Gallardo will send the inspectors tomorrow. We have to get that evidence tonight. I hung up, got dressed, and prepared to leave. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at this hour? Through the peephole, I saw Matteo. His face was grim. Amelia, I know you're in there. He pounded on the door. Open up. We need to talk. I didn't make a sound. I silently backed away and called security. Amelia! Matteo started kicking the door. You think I don't know you're inside? Open up! The door trembled with every kick. I gripped my phone tightly and retreated toward the balcony, ready to scream at any moment. Suddenly, with a crash, the door flew off its hinges. Matteo ran in, his eyes bloodshot. Behind him were 2 burly men. Search, he yelled. Her phone, her computer. Find everything. The 2 men started ransacking the apartment. Matteo lunged at me and grabbed my wrist. Where's the evidence? What evidence? I feigned calmness. Don't play dumb, he squeezed harder, and the pain made me see stars. That Cassandra told you, didn't she? Tell me, where are the things from 528? So it was true. The safe contained evidence of his crimes. I don't know what you're talking about. I tried to pull away. This is a home invasion. I've already called the police. Called? He scoffed. Who's going to believe the word of a crazy woman? With that, he raised his hand to hit me. In that critical moment, 4 bodyguards burst into the apartment and subdued Matteo and his men in the blink of an eye. "Ma'am, are you okay?" the head of security asked. I shook my head and straightened my clothes. I approached Matteo, who was immobilized on the floor, and knelt down. "Matteo," I said calmly, "we're getting a divorce." His eyes widened. You dare." "And not only that," I continued. "Tomorrow, at the press conference, I will reveal the..." We got the safe from 528. Inside were the secret contract between Matteo and Gallardo and the fake accounting books of Castillo Holdings. I let out a long sigh of relief. "Thank God." "And there's something even bigger," Genevieve said, excited. "There were also the records of Gallardo's bribes to the SEC deputy director." My eyes gleamed. That was more than enough to prove they had tried to set a trap for Sterling Enterprises. "Tomorrow's press conference," Genevieve laughed, "is going to be epic." I hung up and looked at the night view of the city. For the first time, I felt victory was within reach. "Matteo, Gallardo, did you think you could cover the sun with your finger? Tomorrow, I will show you what it means to reap what you sow." 4 days after the press conference, Matteo's lawyer contacted me to negotiate an amicable divorce. "An amicable divorce?" I laughed coldly. I guess he wasn't thinking about friendship when he forced his way into my house with his thugs. On the other end of the line, the voice of Mr. Caldwell, the Castillo family's veteran lawyer, sounded uncomfortable. "Miss Sterling, Mr. Castillo insists that it was a misunderstanding." "Mr. Caldwell," I interrupted him, "tell Mr. Castillo that we'll meet tomorrow at 10 at Crofton Associates. If he doesn't show up, he'll lose his chance." I hung up and looked at Genevieve sitting opposite me. "Is everything ready?" Genevieve slid a folder across the table. "Everything's here. Evidence of embezzlement, evidence of assault, evidence of document forgery. Enough for him to spend a decade in jail." I opened the folder. Inside were the documents from the safe in Suite 528, the secret contract between Matteo and Gallardo, the fake accounting books of Castillo Holdings, and even a detailed plan to trap Sterling Enterprises. "And Cassandra?" I asked. "She's under protection," Genevieve said, her frown deepening. "But her emotional state is unstable. She keeps saying that someone wants to kill her." I nodded. After I published the evidence of Matteo and Cassandra's infidelity at the press conference, public opinion had completely shifted. Castillo Holdings stocks plummeted for 3 consecutive days, and the banks began to withdraw their lines of credit. The Castillo family was on the verge of bank room. Matteo and his lawyer were already waiting. Matteo looked haggard, with bloodshot eyes and a wrinkled suit, but when he saw me, he forced a contemptuous smile. "Amelia, you finally show up." He checked his watch. "I thought you wouldn't dare to come." I ignored him and sat down opposite him. Genevieve, my lawyer, got straight to the point. "Following Miss Sterling's instructions, the divorce agreement includes the following points. First, all real estate acquired during the marriage will become the exclusive property of Miss Sterling." "Hold on," Matteo interrupted her. "Based on what?" "Based on Article 98 of the Family Code," Genevieve said calmly, "and on the fact that you are the guilty party in the breakdown of the marriage." Matteo let out a mocking laugh. He pulled a stack of papers from his briefcase and threw them on the table. "Read this first." I picked it up. It was a psychiatric evaluation report. My name was on it, and the diagnosis was paranoid schizophrenia. "Mr. Prescott," Matteo said, triumphant, "according to the law, who should manage the assets of a mentally ill person, the spouse or a direct family member in the capacity of a guardian?" "The direct family member," Mr. Caldwell said, adjusting his glasses without daring to look at me. Matteo leaned back in his chair with a triumphant smile. "Amelia, for old time's sake, if you renounce all your assets, I won't commit you to a psychiatric hospital." I watched his performance in silence. When he finished, I took a flash drive from my purse and gave it to Genevieve. She plugged it into the computer, and a series of bank statements appeared on the projector. On March 15, 2023, Mr. Castillo embezzled $16 million from Castillo Holdings and transferred it to an account in the Cayman Islands, Genevieve read. Matteo's face changed. On May 8, 2023, he embezzled another $25 million. That's false. Matteo jumped up. Genevieve continued to flip through pages. Here we also have the secret contract signed by you and Mr. Gallardo, which stipulates the distribution of profits from the new Lincoln Park North project. Enough! Matteo overturned the coffee cup in front of him. The brown liquid splattered on his white shirt. What the hell do you want, Amelia? I looked him straight in the eye. Lawyer said, wiping sweat from his forehead, I think you should seriously consider Miss Sterling's proposal. There was a tense silence. Matteo kept his head down, his fists clenched. I saw a vein throbbing in his temple. Finally, he lifted his head. His eyes were filled with a resentment I had never seen before. Amelia, you're a viper. I gave a slight smile. Like father, like daughter. The signing of the divorce agreement went smoothly. Matteo renounced almost all his assets, keeping only his Porsche and some personal belongings. In exchange, I promised not to press criminal charges for the embezzlement. Oh, by the way, I said before leaving, Cassandra Shaw asked me to give you a message. She says she still has some interesting things saved. If you bother her or her family again, she won't hesitate to call another press conference. Matteo's face turned ashen. That, she's still alive? I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Nothing. He quickly looked away and rushed out of the room. Seeing his back fleeing, a suspicion grew inside me. Why did Matteo think Cassandra might not be alive? Genevieve? I turned to my friend. Where is Cassandra now? In a safe place. She lowered her voice. After the press conference, she was terrified. She said some men in black were following her. I thought for a moment. I have to see her. It's too dangerous, Genevieve objected. Right now, she's a walking target. Anyone who gets close to her is in danger. Precisely, I stood up. I think she knows a lot more than she's told us. That afternoon, thanks to Genevieve's arrangements, I arrived at a secluded villa on the outskirts of the city. Cassandra was staying in a suite in the basement with 4 bodyguards protecting her 24/7. When she saw me, she shrank into a corner of the couch like a frightened rabbit. Amelia! I saw that her left arm was in a sling and that she still had bruises on her face. Who hit you? I asked bluntly. Cassandra bit her lip in silence. It wasn't Matteo, was it? I pressed her. She suddenly raised her head, surprise in her eyes. It was Gallardo's people, I stated. Tears welled up in her eyes. They said I was useless, that I hadn't gotten the key documents for the new Lincoln. What I wanted was the key data on the new Lincoln Park North project from Sterling Enterprises. My heart skipped a beat. Why? Because a rare earth deposit has been discovered under the project's land. She raised her head. According to Gallardo, the value of that deposit is in the tens of billions of dollars, but it's information that hasn't been made public yet. Genevieve held her breath. So that's why Gallardo tried to sink Sterling Enterprises? For the deposit? Cassandra nodded. Matteo didn't know at first. He thought Gallardo just wanted a share of the project's profits. When he found out the truth, it was too late to back out. So that night, I suddenly understood. The men who broke into my house weren't just Matteo's men, but also Gallardo's. Probably, Cassandra said, trembling. Gallardo knew I had stolen the papers, and he would do anything to get them back. I stood up and began to pace the room. The situation was much more complex than I had imagined. It wasn't a simple case of divorce due to infidelity, but a meticulously planned corporate conspiracy. Cassandra, I stopped. Are you willing to testify in court? She shook her head, terrified. No, Gallardo will kill me. If you don't testify, I said calmly, Gallardo and Matteo will get away with it, and sooner or later they'll find you. But I can protect you. I interrupted her. You and your family. I'll send you abroad, a new identity, a new life. She raised her head, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Really? Only if you testify. Otherwise. I left the sentence hanging. Cassandra understood the implicit threat. If she didn't testify, no one would protect her. I'll think about it, she said in a low voice. Okay. I stood up. But you don't have much time. Gallardo isn't going to just sit on his hands. As I left the safe house, Genevieve immediately called. Reinforce Cassandra's security. 3 shifts. Don't let anyone get near her. She hung up and turned to me. Do you really believe her? I shook my head. Not entirely, but right now she's our only leverage. At that moment, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Amelia. It was a deep, raspy man's voice. Don't cross the line. A chill ran through me, and his face turned ashen. How does he know? He mumbled. Dad, what exactly happened? I grabbed his trembling hand. My father sighed deeply and told me the story of the covered-up mine accident from 20 years ago. Back then, he had just started his business career and was a partner in a mine in Kentucky. A gas explosion killed 8 miners. His partner bribed local officials to cover up the accident. My father didn't find out until later, but he chose to keep silent. It was a criminal offense, he said with pain. If it were known, I'd get at least 7 years in prison. I felt as if I had been thrown into a frozen well. Gallardo had our weak spot. Amelia, my father said suddenly, grabbing my hand, you have to stop the investigation against Gallardo right now. The divorce is already signed. The Castillo family has paid its price. Let's leave it at that. But no buts, he yelled at me, something he rarely did. I can't let you put yourself in danger. I was silent. He was right. If I kept going, I could ruin his life. But letting Gallardo and Mateo get away with it was unbearable. While we were in that tense silence, the butler ran in. Sir, the hospital is calling. Your father-in-law has suffered a stroke. They're operating on him urgently. My father and I froze. My father-in-law, though over 65, had always been in good health. How could this have happened? Let's go, my father said, getting up immediately. In the hallway of the hospital's VIP wing, Isabella was sobbing uncontrollably, and my mother-in-law was sitting on a bench with a blank stare. When she saw us, Isabella ran toward me to hit me. It's your fault. You did this to my father. My father stopped her. Isabella, calm down. How can I calm down? She screamed hysterically. My father collapsed when he saw the news from the press conference. The doctor says if he survives, he could be paralyzed. Amelia, are you happy now? I stood there unable to say anything. I hated the Castillo family, but I had never wished for my father-in-law's death. At that moment, the operating room door opened and a doctor came out. The patient is out of danger, but the next 48 hours are critical. My mother-in-law finally reacted. She got up, please forgive my family. Seeing the arrogant Mateo Castillo bowing his head and asking for forgiveness should have made me feel satisfied. But instead, I felt a strange bitterness. Just as I was about to speak, his phone rang. He saw who was calling and his expression subtly changed. I have to take this call. He went to a corner of the hallway, his back to us, and spoke in a low voice. Instinctively, I followed him silently. Mr. Gallardo, I did what you asked. She's here. Yes, I understand, but what you promised me. His voice was extremely low. Don't worry, I'll make sure she doesn't continue the investigation. The lawyers have already prepared the counterclaim. I felt as if I had been struck by lightning. Mateo's apology was a sham. He was still conspiring with Gallardo to fight back. I went back to my spot in silence. My last doubt had been dispelled. Mateo, I gave you a chance. Mother-in-law, I turned to her. Take good care of father-in-law. I'll come back to visit. As soon as I left the hospital, I called Genevieve. Get Cassandra ready to testify and prepare the lawsuit against Gallardo and Mateo for corporate fraud. Are you sure? Genevieve asked, surprised. What about your father? I'll take care of that, I said firmly. This time, I'll make sure they don't get back up again. 4 days after my father-in-law's hospitalization, Castillo Holdings convened an emergency board meeting. As a shareholder with a 15% stake, I attended without prior notice. The moment I opened the door to the boardroom, all eyes were on me. Mateo, sitting in the chairman's seat, was livid and was nearly breaking the pen he was holding. Amelia, he said through gritted teeth, you shouldn't be here. I smiled slightly and took an empty seat. Mr. Castillo, according to the company's bylaws, any shareholder with more than a 10% stake has the right to attend all meetings. I currently own 15% of Castillo Holdings. Should I be here or not? There was a murmur in the room. Mateo jumped up. Impossible. Where did you get those shares? I didn't answer. I looked toward the door. My father's special assistant, Mr. Bishop, came in and placed a folder on the table. "Gentlemen, yesterday Sterling Enterprises acquired the entirety of Wells' independent director take on the role on an interim basis." "Nonsense," Mateo slammed the table. "I built Castillo Holdings with my own hands." "You're mistaken," I corrected him calmly. "Your father built Castillo Holdings, and you almost ruined it." I opened a file in front of me. "In the last 3 years, he has embezzled $20 million, falsified accounts, and inflated project costs. This has caused the company—" "Stop!" Mateo interrupted me hysterically. "That's all slander." "Whether it's slander or not, the audit will tell." I looked at the other board members. "Gentlemen, let's vote." The result of the vote was predictable. Mateo was dismissed on the spot. 2 security guards escorted him out of the room. Through the glass, I saw him kicking the hallway wall like a madman before they took him away. "Miss Sterling," the newly appointed interim chairman, Mr. Navarro, asked cautiously, "any advice on how to overcome this crisis?" I closed the file. 2 things. First, Sterling Enterprises is willing to offer a short-term loan of $30 million at an annual interest rate of 8%. Second, my father is willing to personally acquire an additional 10% of the new Castillo Holdings shares. The room murmured again. If both conditions were met, Sterling Enterprises would come to own at least 25% of Castillo Holdings, becoming the de facto majority shareholder. That would require a general shareholders meeting, Mr. Navarro said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Of course," I stood up. "I await your good news." As I left the Castillo Holdings building, the early summer sun was blinding. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Genevieve. "Cassandra has agreed to testify, but she wants to see you first." I replied, "Arrange it for tonight." Just as I put away my phone, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Amelia." I turned. It was Isabella. Far from her usual glamorous appearance, she wore no makeup today. Her eyes were swollen, and she had a hospital bracelet on her wrist. "What do you want?" I asked coldly. Isabella bit her lip and then suddenly gave me a deep bow. "I'm sorry." I didn't help her up. I watched her performance in silence. "I know it's too late to apologize." She straightened up, her eyes full of tears. "But I understand everything now. My father and to completely destroy your father's reputation." I narrowed my eyes. "And why are you telling me this?" Tears welled up again. "Because I'm scared. My brother has gone crazy. He doesn't even care about my father's life anymore. Amelia, I just want to protect my parents." I studied her swollen eyes and trembling hands, weighing the truthfulness of her words. Finally, I gave her one of my business cards. "If you remember anything else, call me." Isabella took the card as if it were a treasure, bowed again, and left in a hurry. Watching her walk away, I thought, if what she said was true, Gallardo's goal from the beginning wasn't the project, but the entire Sterling Enterprises, and Mateo was just a pawn in his hands. While I was thinking, my phone rang again. It was my father. "Amelia, get back to the office immediately." His voice was very urgent. "Gallardo has started buying our shares." A chill ran through me. "How many?" "He's already passed 5%, and he's still buying." My father's voice sounded hoarse. "He's manipulating the market. Our stocks have already gone up 15%. "I'm on my way." In the boardroom of the Sterling Enterprises headquarters, the atmosphere was tense. My father and several key executives were gathered around a giant screen that showed real-time stock prices and trading data. "Gallardo is buying through 3 shell companies," the CFO pointed out. "He already controls 5.3% and has spent at least $1 billion. Where did he get so much cash?" I frowned. My father gave a bitter smile. "He has allied with Keppel from Singapore and the Carlyle Group from the United States. It's a joint operation." I held my breath. Keppel and Carlyle were global investment giants. If they were involved— "Activate the poison pill," I made a quick decision. The poison pill was a hostile takeover defense strategy that consisted of issuing new shares to dilute the buyer's stake. "There's no time," my father shook his head. "We need at least 3 days for the board to approve it." "And the White Knight?" I looked at the president of the pension fund, an old friend of my father's. He shook his head. "The government's new regulation makes it difficult for us. Public funds cannot intervene in private company disputes." license was revoked due to repeated accidents, and he always believed that my father was behind it. So this is a revenge story, I understood. My father nodded. He's been waiting 20 years for this moment. I clenched my fists. All the more reason we can't give up. Gentlemen, I turned to the executives, I have an idea. 2 hours later, Sterling Enterprises issued a statement. It would spin off its most profitable asset, the new Lincoln Park North project, into an independent subsidiary and seek strategic investors. This meant that even if Gallardo took control of the group, he wouldn't get its crown jewel. After the announcement, the group's shares fell 8%. The cost of acquisition for Gallardo skyrocketed. Well played, my father said, nodding in approval. But this is just to buy us time, I thought to myself. If only I could find a weak spot for Gallardo. At that moment, Genevieve called. Amelia, bad news. Cassandra has disappeared. What? My heart skipped a beat. How? She was on her way to meet you tonight. A car cut her off. Some men in black took her. Genevieve's voice was urgent. My men say they had guns. They couldn't do anything. A terrible idea crossed my mind. Gallardo or Mateo? We checked the cameras, but the car had a fake license plate, Genevieve added. I immediately called Isabella. Where is your brother? No, I don't know, her voice trembled. He hasn't been to the hospital since last night. Amelia, what's wrong? I hung up without answering. If Cassandra fell into the hands of Gallardo or Mateo, the consequences would be dire. Dad, I have to find Cassandra, I turned to him. She's the key witness. Just as my father was about to speak, his secretary ran in. Sir, it's terrible. ABC News just reported that you were involved in the cover-up of the mine accident in Kentucky 20 years ago, where 8 miners died. The DA has already asked us for an explanation. My father's face turned ashen, and he slumped into his chair. I opened my phone. The most searched headline was #Sterling Mine Cover-Up. The news not only detailed the accident, but also published the list of covered-up victims and testimonies from their families. And the worst part? In less than 10 minutes, Sterling Enterprises shares plummeted 12%, activating a trading halt. Gallardo, my father mumbled. Lightning. What nonsense are you talking about? Ask your father. And he hung up. I stood there, my mind blank. My father's brother. I had never heard of him. What's wrong? Genevieve asked. I shook my head and called my father. Dad, Gallardo just called. He said you killed your own brother. What does that mean? There was a long silence. Finally, I heard my father's voice, old and tired. Amelia, there are things that it's time for me to tell you. The air in my father's study was thick. With trembling hands, he took an old photo album from his safe. He opened a page and pointed to a black and white photo of 2 smiling young men in front of a mine. The one on the left was clearly my father. The one on the right was almost his exact replica. That's my brother, Julian Sterling, my father said with a broken voice. 2 years younger than me. He was impulsive, passionate, loyal. I never knew I had an uncle, I said, a lump in my throat. In the mine accident, he closed his eyes, I was Gallardo's partner, and Julian was a foreman. On the day of the accident, he was off work, but he was the first to go in to rescue his colleagues. He pulled out 5 miners before the tunnel collapsed a second time. He and 7 other miners were buried. Gallardo was in charge of safety, my father clenched his fists. To evade his responsibility, he bribed officials and covered up the real number of deaths. He had Julian and 2 other miners listed as missing. I felt frozen. So that's why Gallardo said my father killed his brother. And you did nothing to clear his name? Tears rolled down my father's cheeks. Sterling Enterprises was just getting started. I was a coward. I hugged him. I felt devastated. That was the real reason for Gallardo's revenge. Dad, it wasn't your fault, I wiped his tears. But now we're going to get justice for Uncle Julian. My father raised his head. What do you plan to do? The press conference is still on, I said firmly. We will not only expose Gallardo's crimes, but also tell the truth about the accident. But Amelia, Julian's honor. Uncle Julian was a hero, I grabbed his hand. He saved 5 people. Sorry, and thank you. Today, your new life begins, I told her. My father came over, impeccable, but exhausted. Everything's ready. I looked at my watch. Any news on Gallardo? He's booked a flight to Singapore for tonight, Genevieve said. You're not getting away, I thought. The police are waiting outside, but they need concrete evidence. I nodded and took out a flash drive. Everything is here. Bribes, money laundering, market manipulation, and a recording of Gallardo's plan to sink us. A recording? Genevieve's eyes widened. From last night? I smiled. Matteo gave it to me. He woke up and confessed that he had recorded several of his conversations with Gallardo. My father held his breath. Matteo helped us to get a reduced sentence, I said. He'll be out of bed to testify at the press conference. At 2:50, they told us to begin. I took a deep breath and went up to the podium. Thank you for your attendance, I said bluntly. Today I am going to reveal a massive corporate conspiracy and the truth about a mine accident that was covered up for 20 years. The auditorium fell silent. I pressed the remote control. On the screen, a transcription of a conversation between Gallardo and Matteo appeared. In the new Lincoln Park Northlands, there's a rare earth deposit. It's worth at least $20 billion. Get Matteo to get close to Amelia no matter what, the audience murmured. I continued to present evidence. Gallardo's accounting book, the money laundering flowcharts, the records of stock manipulation. Finally, my voice breaking, I played a special recording. In it, Gallardo said with smugness, Julian Sterling, that idiot, risked his life for a few miners, and his brother is an even bigger idiot, letting his brother's memory be tarnished to protect his company. The auditorium erupted. My father was crying beside me. Mr. Gallardo, I looked at the camera, you have not only committed corporate crimes, but you have also covered up the truth of an accident that cost 8 lives, including that of my uncle Julian Sterling, a hero whom you turned into a missing person. I gave a signal. The back door opened. 2 police officers were escorting Matteo. Matteo Castillo will testify as a protected witness against Adrian Gallardo, I announced. Matteo concisely recounted how Gallardo had ordered him to get close to me, steal secrets, and forge screen. A video appeared of Gallardo meeting with the SEC deputy director, counting stacks of bills. This video was recorded last night at your private club, I looked at him. Want me to show more? Gallardo's face turned ashen. He tried to flee, but the police stopped him. Adrian Gallardo, the inspector said, showing a warrant, you are under arrest for multiple economic crimes. When the handcuffs were clicked shut, the auditorium erupted in applause. As they were taking him away, Gallardo looked at me with a deep hatred. The press conference ended. My father and I convened an emergency meeting to stabilize the stocks. The police searched Gallardo's properties, finding overwhelming evidence. A week later, Cassandra was sent abroad under protection. Matteo, for his cooperation, was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Castillo Holdings declared bankruptcy. Isabella went from being a rich girl to an office worker at a small company. Gallardo was charged with 12 crimes with an involved amount of $3 billion. And most importantly, a special investigative commission was created to reopen the mine case. A month later, my father and I traveled to Kentucky. At the site of the accident, we erected a monument in honor of my Uncle Julian and the other victims. Julian, I'm sorry, my father cried, caressing the engraved name. I was finally able to get justice for you. I left a bouquet of flowers at the foot of the monument. The mountain wind blew like a reply from the afterlife. A year later, under my direction, Sterling Enterprises not only overcame the crisis, but also absorbed the key assets of Gallardo and Castillo Holdings, doubling its market value. I created a foundation to help victims of industrial espionage, with Cassandra as one of its collaborators. Genevieve's law firm became one of the most prestigious in Chicago. Matteo got a reduced sentence for good behavior. The day before he was released, he sent me a letter through Genevieve. In it, he detailed his regret. It ended by saying, I'm not asking for your forgiveness, just that you know that I'm truly sorry. If there were another life. I didn't reply, but I told Genevieve to offer him a job at the foundation. Are you sure? Genevieve asked, incredulous. After everything he did to you? Everyone makes mistakes. I looked out the window. The important thing is to know how to get back up. Genevieve shook her head. You've like this. If you want to watch another life story, click the video on screen. I promise you'll love it.